Moving on, and today is World Children's Day, and nearly 30 NGOs are calling for the strengthening of children's universal rights in mainland France and also its overseas departments, where they're not always guaranteed. The government is also to unveil its latest plan to combat child violence. And joining me now is France 24's Julia Seeger. Hello, Julia.
Hello.
It's more than 60 years ago that the UN International Convention on the Rights of the Child was adopted. Just run us through what exactly are these rights?
Well, it's an international treaty that was adopted in 1989 by 179 countries. It's binding, and it outlines the essential rights of children. So what are they exactly? Well, you'll find the right to have a name, a nationality, an identity, the right to receive care, to attend school, to be protected from violence. You will also find the right to have a refuge, to be rescued. You'll also find the right to play, the right to be loved, and the right to have a family. Now, in addition to those 54 articles, you have what they call three so-called optional protocols. But as you'll see, Annette, there's nothing optional about these protocols. The first one is against the recruitment of children in armed conflict. The second one focuses on the sale of children, let it be, for instance, for forced labor, for illegal adoption, or for organ donation. And the third one is kind of like an international process which allows children to directly file a complaint with the UN when their rights have been violated, if nothing else has worked on a national level.
And let's take a closer look now, Julia, at the situation in France. A group of NGOs having published a comprehensive report on children's rights this year in France, providing an overview of the situation. So what do they say?
Well, according to this report, but also according to UNICEF France, you have 42,000 children in France who are homeless today. So let it be on the streets or in emergency shelters. One child out of 54 in France lives underneath the poverty line. And the situation is even more alarming in overseas territory. Poverty affects 8 children in 10 in the island of Mayotte and 6 out of 10 in French Guiana. And so hence they don't have often access to health care, but also food and education. And when it comes to education, you have about 100,000 children in France who are not enrolled in school.
And the French government is about to unveil a new government plan against violence carried out towards children. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, you have to know that a child, and this I think is a stunning figure, I mean, a child is raped or sexually assaulted every 3 minutes in France. So that totals 160,000 children every year. 81% of those cases, the abuses are actually incestuous. And the authors of the report say that there's almost a system of impunity, a denial throughout the French society. Now, I'm saying this about France, but of course, this is unfortunately true in a lot of other countries throughout the world. So they give recommendations on how to tackle this. They talk about systematic identification of vulnerable children, for instance, in schools. They talk about expanding the definition of incest to cousins, which is not the case today in France. They talk about the reimbursement of psychotrauma care for all victims. And today, as you said, the French government is set to unveil its plan. We've already heard certain measures that they want to implement, but it seems to be quite slim compared to what's at stake today. They want to increase, for instance, the judicial officers for minors. They want to increase the resources that are allocated to the prevention, of course, of this type of violence with helpline platforms. But, children really need to be protected on all fronts, and there are many fronts, unfortunately. So it's a massive undertaking, and child abuse really extends outside of the household into institutions, and also, and this is a huge topic, increasingly online.
Indeed it is. Thank you so much, Julia Seeger.